Leonor's husband must be approved by Parliament. A future queen, a nation watching, and a rule almost no one talks about. They think Princess Leonor can marry for love. They're wrong, because Spain holds a secret. A secret powerful enough to break a romance, spark a political firestorm, or reshape a monarchy. Her future husband must be approved. Not by the king, not by the palace, but by Parliament itself. And here's the twist. This rule wasn't designed to protect Leonor. It was designed to control the crown. Spain imagines its future queen walking into marriage the way any young woman might, full of hope, full of dreams, full of certainty that love is hers to choose. The country sees her smile, her discipline, her courage in military academy, her growing confidence as crown princess, and they assume the rest of her life is hers. But a single, centuries-old law stands between Leonor and the man she loves. A law most Spaniards have never read. A law that says the heir to the throne cannot marry without the explicit authorization of the Cortes Generales, the Spanish Parliament. And history shows, Parliament does not always say yes. But how did such a rule come to exist? Why is it still active? And more importantly, what happens when love collides with politics? This is where the story begins, not in the present, but deep in Spain's constitutional framework, and even deeper in the quiet anxieties of the royal family. Because Leon's modern monarchy is built on stability. But love is unpredictable. And that is the first curiosity loop. Because once you understand why Parliament must approve Leonor's husband, you begin to ask, what kind of man could survive such scrutiny? But before we answer that, we must follow the thread back, centuries back, to the origin. The rule emerged after catastrophic royal marriages across Europe triggered wars, civil unrest, diplomatic collapses, and public rebellions. Spain learned the hardest way that a royal wedding was not just a romantic choice, it was a geopolitical weapon. The wrong marriage could shift entire alliances. The wrong man could manipulate the crown. The wrong husband could become a gateway for foreign influence, corruption, or political destabilization. So Spain created a safeguard. The Cortes would have the power to approve or reject any spouse chosen by the heir. On paper, it sounds simple. In reality, it is a minefield. Imagine this. Leonor privately falls in love with someone. A soldier, perhaps. Or a classmate. Or someone outside Spain. Someone unknown to the public. Someone the newspapers haven't invented yet. Someone whose past isn't quite spotless or whose family carries a shadow. Imagine the palace preparing a formal request to Parliament. And imagine Parliament saying, no, this isn't hypothetical. It is explicitly written. If Leonor marries without approval, she automatically loses her rights to the throne. No exceptions. No royal loopholes. No emotional pleas. Her crown is conditional. Her marriage is conditional. Her life, from childhood to adulthood, is shaped by a rule she had no voice in creating. And this leads to the second curiosity loop. If the future queen can lose her crown over love, what pressures does she face behind palace doors? Publicly, the monarchy is serene. Privately, the stakes are crushing. Her parents know this. Queen Letizia, especially, understands it on a human level. Because she herself walked into the monarchy as an outsider, a divorced journalist, someone who faced enormous public scrutiny. She knows what it means to look perfect in photographs while drowning in expectations. And King Felipe, he remembers that his own father tried to control his engagement to Letizia. He remembers the tension, the meetings, the arguments within Zarzuela Palace. He remembers the emotional cost of choosing love anyway. So now imagine the two of them, Felipe and Letizia, looking at their daughter and seeing not just a princess, but the future of the monarchy, tied to a legal requirement with massive political consequences. This is no longer just a story about a rule. It's a story about family tension, about identity, about duty versus desire. And here comes another curiosity loop. What does Parliament actually look for in Leonor's future husband? Because the criteria are not written in law. They are unwritten, informal, but powerful. A husband must not bring scandal. He must not come from a family entangled in corruption or extremism. He must not divide public opinion. He must not be seen as too ambitious. He must not have political ties that threaten neutrality. He must be loyal, stable, discreet, and clean. The Spanish monarchy is fragile, much more fragile than many realize. It relies on public support, and any spouse who weakens that support becomes a liability. So the vetting process begins long before marriage, long before engagement, long before the public even suspects Leonor has a love interest. Every friend she makes, every cadet she trains with, every classmate, every whisper of affection, every rumored connection, all of it is watched. Not cruelly, not obsessively, but protectively, because the monarchy cannot risk a repeat of past royal scandals. And this leads to the next loop. If Leonor falls in love with someone Parliament will never approve, what then? This is not theoretical. European royalty has lived this exact conflict. Princess Martha Louise of Norway gave up her royal role for love. Prince Friso of the Netherlands lost his place in the line of succession for love. Prince Harry left the monarchy entirely for love. Love and monarchy have always been a battlefield. And imagine the emotional cost of that choice. The pressure, the heartbreak, the fear, the responsibility of an entire nation resting against the weight of her heart. Now imagine a different scenario. She finds a man who could be accepted. But Parliament still rejects him. Not because of scandal, but because Spain is politically divided. Because some parties want to weaken the monarchy. Because rejecting her husband becomes a way to humiliate the crown. This has happened in other constitutional monarchies, where politics weaponized royal marriages. And so the question becomes, is Parliament's approval a safeguard, or a political time bomb? Felipe knows the answer. Letizia knows the answer. Leonor will soon confront it. But the story deepens further. Consider the symbolic power of Leonor's marriage. It will not be a private celebration. It will be a national event. Millions will watch. The world will analyze. Every detail, from the dress to the guest list, will be interpreted as a message. Her husband will not only be a partner. He will represent the unity of Spain. He will become a permanent figure in the public eye. He will shape how young people perceive the monarchy. He will influence Leonor's image for decades. So the monarchy's advisors ask difficult questions. Is he stable enough? Is he educated enough? Is he emotionally resilient enough? Can he handle the pressure? Will he protect Leonor from the brutality of public life? Or will he become a liability? And here comes another curiosity loop. What happens inside the palace when Leonor introduces a man she cares about? The first meeting is quiet, private, warm, but after that, the investigation begins, not out of suspicion, but out of necessity. Background checks, family history, public presence, behavior patterns, psychological compatibility, security risks. This is not a normal relationship. This is the most scrutinized romance in Spain. And yet, beneath all that pressure, Leonor is still a young woman. She still wants what every young woman wants, someone who loves her for who she is, not for her title. Someone who protects her heart, not her crown. Someone who makes her feel human in a life built on ceremony. So what kind of man survives? Everything we know points toward one archetype. A man of service. A man of discipline. A man who understands duty. A man who has lived structure, hierarchy, public responsibility. Someone with emotional strength, not ambition. Someone reliable, discreet, steady. This is why rumors always swirl around military cadets, naval officers, Air Force trainees. Because the monarchy understands that love rooted in service stands the best chance of surviving the political storm. And this leads to yet another loop. Could Leonor's future husband already be in her life? Perhaps someone she met during military training. A classmate at the University of Zaragoza. Someone who walked beside her during drills, shared long hours of study, felt the same pressure, the same discipline, the same sense of responsibility. Someone who saw her as Leonor, the person. Not Leonor, the future queen. And if she does fall in love with such a man, what happens when the palace begins its assessment? What happens when Parliament receives the request? What happens when Spain's media begins to dig into his life? Into his childhood, his friendships, his past? The crown survives on public trust, and the man who marries the future queen must not only love her. He must withstand the weight of a kingdom. Imagine the couple, months before engagement, sitting together in private. She explains the law to him, what will happen, what will be examined, what he must face. He listens quietly. He considers whether he can handle it. Whether he can sacrifice privacy, normalcy, anonymity. A man who loves her enough to say yes is already rare. A man who loves her enough to withstand Spain's scrutiny is extraordinary. And yet, even with all this, the final decision will not be theirs. It will be Parliament's. So now the loop comes full circle. Does this law protect Leonor, or does it trap her? Perhaps both. It protects the monarchy. It protects national stability. It protects the crown. But it also limits her heart. Her choices. Her future. The greatest paradox of monarchy is this. A princess may one day rule millions. But she cannot freely choose whom she marries. Not without consequences. Not without approvals. Not without sacrifice. Yet, if history teaches us anything, it is that love, when it is real, finds a way through the impossible. Felipe and Letizia overcame barriers. Other royals overcame barriers. Spain is changing, evolving, adapting. Perhaps, when the moment comes, Parliament will not judge her fiancé harshly. Perhaps they will see what she sees. His loyalty, his goodness, his strength of character, his ability to support her through a life few could endure. And maybe, that day, Spain will witness a love story powerful enough to unite the nation rather than divide it. Because in the end, Leonor is not just a future queen. She is a human being, with a human heart, facing an inhuman level of scrutiny. When the time comes, when she introduces the man she loves, when the palace submits the request to Parliament, when Spain holds its breath, it will not be a story about politics. It will be a story about family, about courage, about a young woman raised for duty, yet still brave enough to chase love. And that is the truth behind the rule. Parliament may have the power to approve her husband, but only Leonor has the power to choose him.